been dodging questions about her for at least 2 months. There was also this incident where somebody asks about her love scenes, and he abruptly ends the interview, and you could tell that he's angry.
And then, what do you know? There are these videos that come to light that seem to show him being flirty with this Maggie woman on stage, who, again, like we said, is only 25 years old, and changing the lyrics of songs. A song, The Fighter, that he wrote for Nicole Kidman, changing the lyrics, that were about her to something that was about Matt.
Nicole Kidman sits quietly in the corner of the softly lit room, her hands folded gently in her lap as she waits for the interview to begin. The lights are warm, not harsh, and for a moment, you can tell she is grateful for that. Grateful that this conversation won't require her to hide behind the polished, glittering armor she often has to wear in public. Her smile is subtle, almost shy despite all her years in the spotlight. Maybe it's because she knows today's topic is different. Today, she's not here to talk about a film premiere or a glamorous red carpet memory. She's here to reveal something far more vulnerable, something she kept tucked away in her heart for years. Something that has quietly shaped her life with Keith Urban since the day they said, "I do." Her eyes lift when the interviewer finally settles across from her, and there's something in her expression, something soft, almost nostalgic, like she's bracing herself for a question she already knows is coming. And when it comes, it doesn't crash into the air dramatically. It slips in gently, but it still makes her pause because of the weight it carries. Nicole, you've been married to Keith for almost 2 decades now. And there's always been this curiosity, this almost whispered question about why you never sought spousal support. You were the bigger star at the time, financially speaking, and many assumed you'd protect your assets the way most celebrities do. But you didn't. Why? Nicole's lips part just slightly, but she doesn't speak yet. Instead, she lets her shoulders rise with a quiet breath, the kind that carries years of memories in its exhale. And then she does something unexpected. She laughs softly. Not mockingly. Not dismissively. Almost lovingly. Like the question itself has carried her back to a moment she hadn't revisited in a long time. "I suppose," she begins, her voice tender, "that the world saw numbers. Money. Contracts. But I didn't. I saw a man standing in front of me who was trying so hard to offer me his heart, not his wallet. And that meant more to me than anything else." But before the interviewer can press further, she continues, as though once she's opened the door to this memory, it refuses to close again. It wasn't about finances. It was about faith. And just like that, the room shifts. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like an interview anymore. It feels like a confession, one she's finally ready to release. The story unfolds not with dramatics, but with the gentle unraveling of a truth she has held close since the day she met Keith Urban. And to understand that truth, she takes us back to the night their worlds first collided in 2005. She remembers that night like it was a vivid dream she woke up from only yesterday. The event was glamorous, yes, but she felt strangely out of place, even in her perfectly fitted gown and flawless makeup. She wasn't lonely, exactly, but she was living in a space between healing and hope, a space that made her cautious. After everything she had been through, she wasn't searching for love. She wasn't even expecting the possibility of it. She was simply attending another event, shaking hands, smiling politely, doing what her career required. Then she saw him. Keith Urban didn't enter the room with fireworks or loud energy. He wasn't trying to be seen. In fact, it almost looked like he was trying not to be noticed. But that was what caught her attention. The quiet confidence, the grounded presence, the way he seemed so in tune with his surroundings yet unaffected by the noise of the crowd. He smiled at her, and it wasn't the smile of a man impressed by a movie star. It was the smile of a man genuinely seeing her. And in that split second, something shifted inside her. Their first conversation lasted only a few minutes, just enough time for polite introductions and a moment of shared humor. But Nicole walked away feeling something she couldn't quite name. Curiosity, warmth, something gentle, something she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know what to do with it, so she did nothing. She let the night pass like any other. But fate has a way of nudging, pushing, twisting, and stirring, especially when two hearts are quietly shifting toward each other. Keith reached out days later, and this time, Nicole didn't ignore the flutter inside her chest. She let herself feel it, just a little. Their early conversations weren't filled with grand stories or glamorous anecdotes. They were simple, honest exchanges between two people who were slowly learning to trust again. Nicole found herself drawn to Keith's sincerity, his humility, his humor, and the way he carried a tenderness beneath his strength. Keith, on the other hand, found himself captivated by Nicole's depth, the way she listened intently, the way she spoke with intention, the way she made him feel seen in ways he had never experienced. It didn't take long for their connection to unfold into something undeniably real. And that's when the outside world started whispering, "She's the bigger star. She has more to lose. Make sure she protects herself this time." Hollywood marriages don't last without legal precautions. Nicole heard those whispers. They circled around her like tiny storms, each one reminding her of past wounds, past mistakes, past heartbreaks. She knew what people expected her to do. She knew the logical choice. But she also knew how love works, or rather, how she wanted it to work this time. She didn't want a relationship with Keith to be built on terms and conditions. She didn't want the shadow of money hanging over them like an unspoken threat. She wanted freedom. She wanted trust. She wanted to choose love without paperwork, quietly suggesting she was bracing for impact. So when marriage conversations began, Nicole found herself standing in a space she never expected to revisit, a space where she was willing to risk again. Not recklessly, not blindly, but bravely. She didn't ask for spousal support. She didn't demand clauses or conditions. She didn't want any of it, because Keith wasn't marrying her for her money. And she wasn't marrying him for anything but who he was. Their wedding day felt like a whisper more than a shout. Beautiful, intimate, filled with the kind of joy that doesn't need to be loud to be felt deeply. And for a few months, their worlds seemed perfectly aligned. Until the moment life tested them. Not gently, but with a suddenness that threatened to undo everything they had built so carefully. Keith needed help. It was a quiet admission, but its impact was seismic. He was struggling, truly struggling, and though he tried to keep it inside, Nicole could see it. She felt it. And when he finally agreed to enter treatment, the world around them seemed to hold its breath. The headlines came as they always do. The judgments, the speculations, the whispers of doubt. Many assumed the marriage would collapse before it even had the chance to strengthen. They thought Nicole would walk away, that she would protect herself the way celebrities are expected to. But she didn't. Instead, she paused everything. She stepped out of the spotlight, away from film sets and industry obligations. She chose to stand beside her husband in the quietest, most human way possible. It was during those difficult weeks that she realized something important, something she had never fully understood until then. Love doesn't reveal its truth in perfect moments. It reveals it in storms, in silence, in fear, in the spaces where you either turn away or turn toward. Nicole turned toward the camera, a subtle intensity in her gaze that hinted at a story few had ever heard. It was during that quiet, unguarded moment that she understood why she had never needed spousal support from Keith, and why she would never need it. Because the currency of their relationship was never money. It was resilience, loyalty, and a type of emotional devotion that couldn't be bought, measured, or negotiated. Their love wasn't built on legal safeguards. It was forged in trust, tempered by experience, and strengthened in vulnerability. When Keith returned home after completing his treatment, something remarkable happened. Their marriage didn't just recover, it deepened. They didn't rebuild from scratch. They rebuilt from the foundation of something unshakable. And over the years, it became abundantly clear that Nicole's decision to forego spousal support wasn't naive. It was fierce, intentional, a declaration of strength. She believed in him. She believed in herself. And most importantly, she believed in the possibility of a love untainted by fear, expectations, or control. There was another layer to her choice, one she rarely spoke of, rooted not in romance, but in hard-earned wisdom. Nicole had endured a very public, deeply painful chapter of her life, a partnership where power, finances, and unspoken imbalances silently dictated the rules. She had felt what it was like to rely on something fragile, something that could shift in an instant. This time, she wanted different. She wanted equality, vulnerability, and faith. She wanted a marriage built on trust rather than contracts, on freedom rather than obligation, on emotional intimacy rather than financial security. As the years passed, the world watched them grow, not merely as celebrities, but as partners who somehow shielded their love from the chaos of fame. They raised children, navigated careers, laughed through storms, survived challenges, and created a life that felt authentically theirs. The public eventually noticed. They stopped speculating about spousal support. They saw it in the way Nicole looked at Keith during award shows, in the way he held her hand during interviews, in the unspoken harmony between them. They existed not as Nicole Kidman the star and Keith Urban the musician, but as two souls intertwined, walking side by side through life. Under the glow of the interview lights, Nicole continued her story, voice soft yet unwavering. "I didn't want a marriage that needed safety nets," she said, eyes glistening. "I wanted one that stood on its own. I didn't want Keith to feel like he had to match me in any way. I wanted him free to be himself, not weighed down by comparisons or expectations." She paused, savoring her words. "I loved him. And when you love someone fully, you don't calculate what they bring to the table. You sit with them. You grow with them." Her words carried weight, years of resilience, trust, heartbreak, and hope compressed into each sentence. Nicole's choice wasn't about financial independence. It was about courage, about loving without barriers, about trusting even when the past had taught her otherwise. And as the camera faded to black, it was clear. This was a love story extraordinary not because of fame, but because of bravery, vulnerability, and the quiet strength of two people choosing each other every day.